and welcome to this new episode. This is the first episode of the Age of Aries. In the last episode, we went into the Age of Taurus and very much a lot into Ma'at, but also this coming together of the divine twins again, and very much the cult of Isis and this basis for what is gonna come now in this episode, where we're gonna dive deeper into the mystery schools. So the Dionysiac religion contained originally orgiastic rites that implied the need for an initiate to abandon himself to his animal nature and thereby experience the full fertilizing power of the Earth Mother. The initiating agent for this rite of passage in the Dionysiac ritual was wine. It was supposed to produce the symbolic lowering of consciousness necessary to introduce the novice into the closely guarded secrets of nature, whose essence was expressed by a symbol of erotic fulfillment. The god Dionysus, joined with Ariadne, his consort, in a sacred marriage ceremony after his hero's journey. Again, linking back to the Heroes Gamos and also this union between opposites from a Jungian lens. Dionysus also being Persephone's son, as Zacharias. Dionysus is a god from ancient Greek mythology, and he is commonly associated with wine, festivity, and ecstasy. However, he's also considered a vegetation deity, which means that he is associated with the growth and flourishing of plants and crops, much like Osiris that we went into in the last episode. In this aspect, Dionysus is often depicted as a young man with a wreath of ivy or grape leaves on his head, holding a thyrsus, a staff wrapped with ivy or vine leaves and topped with a pine cone. And his symbols include grapes, wine, and other plants that are used to make alcohol. The connection between Dionysus and vegetation stems from his association with the cycle of life and death. And in Greek mythology, Dionysus was born twice. First from the womb of his mother Semele, and then from the thigh of Zeus, his father. This is one particular version of the myth. And this dual birth symbolizes the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth, which is reflected in the annual cycle of plant growth and decay. Furthermore, Dionysus was believed to have the power to bring life and fertility to the land. And his cult was associated with the agricultural cycle, and his worship was often accompanied by rituals and celebrations that involved the planting and harvesting of crops. And these rituals were believed to ensure the success of the crops and the fertility of the land. And as a vegetation deity, Dionysus originally can be linked back to a vegetation deity much like Attis, linking him back to the mysteries of the Great Mother as discussed in the Age of Cancer episode. And the sacred marriage symbolism also being present there. And the Greek version of the Choreos, called the Chorebantes, also played a part in the Orphic Mysteries, a religious system centered around the god Dionysus. And in these mysteries, the Chorebantes were seen as representing the rebirth of Dionysus. The Chorets or Chorebantes of ancient Greek religion were frequently depicted as young men or boys engaged in lively, noisy activities like music and dancing to protect the infant god Dionysus from harm. The Corybantes further were even believed to have taken the infant Dionysus to Crete, where they raised him in a cave and taught him their mystical and ecstatic practices. And the Orphic Mysteries also incorporated elements of other religious traditions, including Egyptian and Mesopotamian beliefs, as well as aspects of Pythagorean philosophy. And the Corybantes, with their connections to other gods and goddesses like Cybele and Rhea, may have also influenced the syncretic nature of the Orphic Mysteries. And in that sense, the Dionysic religion reformed by Orpheus was about an experience of religious ecstasies inwardly, to find the source of attainment, of liberation within. What was symbolic and outwardly became an inward practice. And though transformed into a mystical form, the Orphic Mysteries kept alive the old Dionysiac religion linked to Cybele, whilst also integrating elements of the Choreos rituals into its mythological context, especially tied to the hero's journey aspects, but placing it into the context of a dying and rising vegetation deity. The Eleusinian, mysteries in turn were a series of ancient Greek religious ceremonies held in honor of the goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone. And these ceremonies were held annually in the city of Eleusis, located in Attica, Greece. And they were considered to be the most important religious event in ancient Greece and were celebrated for over 2,000 years, which is a very long time. And exact origins of the lesser mysteries are unclear, but they were believed to have been established in the Mycenaean period, around 2000 to 1500 BCE from the earlier Cybele cult, with later influence from Egypt through the cult of Isis, linked to the death of her husband Osiris, also a vegetation deity. And the mysteries of Isis, as we had said in the previous episode, were a set of religious rituals and ceremonies that were dedicated to the goddess Isis, who was one of the most popular deities in ancient Egypt and later in ancient Rome. And rituals were believed to have been based on the story of the goddess's search for her dead husband Osiris. The rituals were also believed to have been a way of gaining access to the afterlife and achieving immortality. And the mysteries of Isis, were held in temples and typically were only open to initiates who had gone through a period of purification and had demonstrated their worthiness to participate. And initiates were usually required to take an oath of secrecy and would participate in rituals such as fasting, purification, and reenactments of the myth of Isis and Osiris. And the rituals included different stages of initiation as well, and were believed to convey spiritual enlightenment, purification, and moral regeneration, as well as providing a deeper understanding of the mysteries of life, death, and afterlife. Rituals further were also believed to have healing powers, and many people would participate in the rituals seeking physical and psychological healing. The later Greek Eleusinian ceremonies involved a series of rituals including fasting, purification, and the consumption of a sacred drink called kykion. And the ceremonies also included a procession from Athens to Ulysses and a reenactment of the story of Demeter and Persephone's abduction by Hades. It's also worth noting that the Eleusinian Mysteries were not open to everyone. Only people who had the Greek citizenship and were free of blood guilt, so murder, could participate in the initiation. And another noteworthy thing is to know that the mystery tradition was eventually suppressed by the Roman Empire in 396 AD. But going a little bit into the mysteries. So the mysteries began with the march of the Mystia, so the initiates, in a solemn procession from Athens to Ulysses. The rites they then performed in the telesterion or hall of initiation. And neophytes were initiated in stages, and the annual process began with purification rites at what were called the Lesser Mysteries, held at Agraea on the stream of Ilossos outside of Athens in the month of Antesterion, so that would be February to March, and were open to both men and women. And these lesser mysteries were intended to prepare the initiates for the greater mysteries, which were held in the month of Budomion, September to October, roughly speaking. And lesser mysteries involved a series of rituals and ceremonies that were intended to purify the initiates and prepare them for the greater mysteries. The greater mysteries were then considered to be the most important and sacred part of the Eleusinian Mysteries, and they were open only to initiates who had undergone the lesser mysteries and were considered to be pure and morally upright. The greater mysteries were then also believed to provide initiates with a deeper understanding of the divine and the afterlife, and were thought to give them the ability to communicate with the gods and the dead. And the Eleusinian Mysteries had two stages of initiation, the first being called teletke, or termination, which symbolized the end of an imperfect and incomplete period of life and the start of purification. The initiate was then referred to as mista, meaning veiled or liberated person. The second stage, the greater mysteries, provided further instruction and discipline, leading the initiate to be known as an epopta or seer, and was believed to have attained the ultimate understanding of the principles of life. And the name means one who knows the interior wisdom. And the goal of this process was, according to the Neoplatonist Thomas Taylor, also the aim of Plato's philosophy, which sought to understand the soul's nature as a combination of its connection to the external world and divinity, as well as its association with the physical world and susceptibility to passions.
Apollon, pagaidis menu, voi vaiton mante.